I want to say a few words today about the role of AD and green gas in decarbonising heat. And in order to get us underway, I think we need to start off by understanding why decarbonising heat is such an imperative right now. We're making real progress towards decarbonising some areas of energy, such as power, but with heat, which represents something like 60% of all energy consumption, we're pretty stuck. Whilst power has rapidly decarbonised and over 50% of power now comes from renewable or low carbon sources, heat remains stubbornly high carbon. Most heat use is in the home. 79% of heat use in the home is for heating and hot water currently, and 81% of that is provided by gas boilers. Only 7% is currently provided by electrical means. So domestic heat is a very substantial element of that non-decarbonised block of heat use that at the moment doesn't appear to be likely to disappear very soon. But if we're to meet our climate goals, and we're now committed obviously to meet net zero emissions by 2050, we really have to decarbonise heat rapidly and catch up on those areas making more progress. We probably need to move to something like 40 to 50% of all heat decarbonised by 2030 if we're to get back and keep on track with our climate emission goals. And frankly, it's a bit of a quiet scandal that government has neglected serious heat decarbonisation over the last decade whilst concentrating on power almost alone to do the decarbonisation heavy lifting. And this shows in recent reporting on emission reductions by, for example, the Committee on Climate Change, which showed in a recent report to Parliament that since 2012, something like 75% of emissions reduction has come from the power sector. All other sectors, including heat, have more or less flatlined. In short, there hasn't been a plan for heat decarbonisation in government for the last 10 years, and future projections for policy at the beginning of the decade assumed that, in a sense, this was going to be eventually not a big problem because there was a silver bullet for heat decarbonisation that would in the end sort it out. Next slide. And what was that silver bullet? Well, if we go back to 2012 and look at the last serious heat policy paper to come out of government, they said this. They said decarbonising our heat supply at the level of individual buildings will require current heating systems such as gas boilers to be substituted for a range of low carbon alternatives such as biomass boilers, solar thermal and heat pumps. And they also said there may also be transitional technologies such as natural gas powered building level CHP along with domestic scale micro CHP which can reduce the carbon emissions of heating in the short term. So policy such as it was essentially to countenance the mass installation of heat pumps, the ripping up of the gas network, even though it's currently reaching about 90% of homes, but with the alternative of some district heating in urban areas. Now, solar thermal and micro CHP, which were suggestions in 2012 as some technologies that might come on, have faded away as serious contenders. And heat pump installation since 2010 has plateaued out at only about 20,000 units per year. So we've lost a decade in heat decarbonisation and nothing much is still happening. Next slide. But progress, I think, has, however, been made in terms of thinking on the silver bullet front, you might say, over the intervening period. And this is what the 2012 heat strategy document did say on why they thought biomethane was not a silver bullet. They said decarbonising our heat supply without having to change our heating systems and while using a gas grid that is already built initially appears attractive. However, injecting biomethane into the gas grid presents a number of challenges. Supplies of sustainable sourced biomass feedstocks are necessarily limited. Large-scale biomethane injection into the grid is not a realistic option. But I think in the meantime there's been a realisation that whilst biomethane is not a silver bullet, nor on the other hand is anything else. Heat pumps have problems when, if installed in less energy efficient homes, they don't work as well as they might do. They're best suited for new builds and off-grid properties. And besides, as is being recognised, retro installation of heat pumps means changing the rest of the system too. That is, you have to change all the central heating pipes, for example, and effectively give the whole house a system makeover subsequent to the installation of the particular heat pump. District heating is certainly very good at delivering decarbonisation of a mass supply of heat without decarbonising each home's installation separately, but is best suited for more dense urban settings. So I think what has changed since 2012